Hiya. Hope you're well. Saturday, March 15th. Let's do this. Another ripping through my records segment. I haven't talked about any specific artist or record for a while, or at least a couple of weeks, and I'm doing that today. I was going through my storage unit yesterday, and sometimes I just I'm looking for something else, and then something catches my eye that I wasn't even looking for. And I just feel like, yeah, I need that in my life right now. I need to hear that. I need to take this home. I need to record this. And as some of you know, my ripping through my records little segment that I do is basically me finding old records in my collection that I would like to record into my digital collection. And I'm going to talk about Howie B today. I've already done a few Howie B videos, but you can never do enough Howie B videos the way I see it. I love Howie B. He's one of those 90s electronic producers that I think is one of the best. Maybe the 10, if you had to make a top 10 list, Howie B would probably be in my top 10. I just think he's immensely talented. And the 90s, in my opinion, was his best decade. That was when he was on a serious roll. He had his Pussyfoot label. He was producing, he was remixing, he was putting out his own albums and his own 12 inches. And the dude was just on fire. Everything he did was amazing. And he kind of was in the hip hop world, but he did other things. Like he made his hip hop music sound different. It had a experimental bent to it. It was singed with experimentation and electro and techno and house and ambient. But I feel like the seedling of everything he did was sort of housed in hip hop. That was kind of his go-to. But then not at the same time. And I will hopefully prove that with this video. He was all over the place, but I think hip hop's initial goal was to sort of take all these different elements in these differing styles and events of life and kind of throw it all into one big stew and see what came out of it. And I think Howie B did that very well. So I think musically he definitely could make hip hop music, but I think more in terms of the spirit of hip hop, Howie B was there. He's always experimented. He hasn't really ever aligned himself with one type of music to be made. And that's what I love about Howie B. You kind of don't know what to expect. He's always been that way. I mean, you do and you don't. Like when you hear a more down-tempo kind of electro track from him, that's kind of what you expect, but then he doesn't always give you that. He'll give you that, and then the next song will be ambient. And then the next song could be kind of a folk song, and he was just that talented. His stuff was always good, though. That was the key. Howie B was never bad, in my opinion. He doesn't make much stuff anymore. The reason that I pulled his stuff out, too, is just this week I bought a record with a Howie B remix on it. I hadn't really seen his name on anything recently. He may have done something more recently. I just haven't noticed it. But I was doing my daily rounds at Juno looking for records to buy, and his name popped up. He just did a remix of an artist. So I was like, oh, Howie B, all right. He did something. Cool. And I haven't gotten the record yet because I just bought it a few days ago, but his remix, at least listening to the clips on Juno, it was like the best thing on this 12-inch. It's like a 4-track 12-inch. And so far, I mean, at least from the clips, the Howie B remix was far better than anything else on there. That's usually how I feel about him anyway. He just scratches an itch. Super talented guy. Love Howie B. And I love talking about him. And this will be my third Howie B video. Maybe there'll be more. I don't know. So I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to talk about 3 albums and 12 inches. I'm going to try to kind of mash it all together here. I already did a video on this. I'll link you to it. I have Howie B stuff spread all over the place, but the box that I just checked had all this stuff together, and I have a ton of Pussyfoot records. Pussyfoot, it was his label back in the 90s. He put out a lot of stuff, just generally experimental hip hop type music in you know in general. I'm trying to think. I mean, there were techno influences and ambient house. Like it was electronic music, 90s style. And Pussyfoot was one of those labels that I would try to pick up no matter what it was. I would normally just pick up anything on Pussyfoot. It was the seal of quality, the way I saw it. But this was his first, full length album, and this was on Polydor. I've already talked about this. I love this record. I'll link you to my other video if you want to watch it, where I focus on this album. I probably talked for 20 minutes or so, maybe a half an hour on what this album means to me. I did want to hold this up too. This is the same album, but this was a promo version of it that Polydor put out. It's pretty epic too. It's a 4-record box set, and basically there are 8 tracks on the album, and Polydor put one song on each side. 4 records, 8 sides, 8 songs, and they put one track on each side. They really went all out to promote this. And it's interesting too, because the first half of this record, the tracks are pretty long. There's a song it's like 10 minutes, and then there's one that's 9 minutes, and then there's one that's 7 minutes. But then like the second half, the tracks are like 3-4 minutes apiece. But they each have their own side to breathe. So if you were looking for this album on vinyl and you wanted the best possible pressing, this is going to be it. This is pressed at 45 RPM too, so it sounds pretty damn good. Anyway, not the most exciting looking box set. It's numbered, as you can see, but get some print down here. I'll show this. I'm going to be showing records today. I used to do this all the time, and I don't do it much anymore, and I'm going to do it today. Yeah, they went all out for this release. Pretty cool. Each record has its own colored inner sleeve. This one's orange. I'll show the labels on this one. All 4 records, the labels are the same. They just have, different track listings, of course. This is track 1, Music for Babies. And this is track 2, Cry. So you get one song on each side. Pretty cool. Again, if you love this album, this is the version to get, I think. Polydor definitely was all about promoting Howie B. That's record 1. Record 2, you get a purple sleeve. Record 3, you get kind of a pinky, reddy, magenta colored sleeve. And then record 4, you get like a neon. This is more green that it's showing up on my video here. It looks more yellow when I show it to the screen here, but in person it's more like a lime green. Maybe it is showing up, but anyway, yeah, kind of cool. I remember, well, you know what? I don't remember. I'm pretty sure I got this from the record label directly, and then I think I ended up buying the blue covered one because it had a booklet with it, and it was just different, and I love the album. So anyway, you know how I feel about Music for Babies. If you don't, I'll link you to my other video. This is an example of Pussyfoot. This is what their labels look like. This is, what is this? Spacer, Dead on Arrival, Howie B, Ambidextrous. He put out a lot of 12 inches like this where he would feature artists on his label. These various artists, 12 inches and comps and shit. I think this one came out in 95. Yeah, this was pre-Music for Babies. Howie B's cut on here is fucking great too, man. He's so good. Howie B, what a stud. This is a fantastic 12-inch. Again, whenever I saw this, I usually just pick it up blindly. I didn't need to be convinced. I just saw it was on Pussyfoot and I would pick it up. This is a compilation. This is called Best Foot Forward. A comp on Pussyfoot. You get Howie B tracks on here. It's a double album here of cuts. Pussyfoot. That's Foot Forward. Anything on this label. Anything. So good. Trying to think of what my favorite. I mean, the Howie B tracks are probably my favorite. There are a couple on here. There are three actually. Spacers on here again. Naked Funk. Some of these were Howie B under different names too, I think. Yeah, Scotty DeVivo. Howie B's Scottish, if you don't know this. He's Scots. I have a feeling that's what Scotty DeVivo means. I don't know. I'm just guessing there. Howie B, he's a star. So this is one of the records I wanted to focus on. Let me take this out of its sleeve. This is the album he put out after Turn the Dark Off, and I've already done a video on that. So I'm not going to show that again. I'll link you to that one too, if you haven't seen that one. This is the record he put after Turn the Dark Off. Turn the Dark Off, I think, was probably his biggest album, and that 97, 98 period was, he had probably hit a peak for his popularity. Turn the Dark Off came out. He produced U2. He produced Bjork. Howie B was a big name. One of the reasons why I deeply respect Howie B too is albums like this, because he worked with U2 and Bjork and did the Turn the Dark Off with Robbie Robertson. He did that track with Robbie Robertson. He kind of solidified himself as like a heavyweight producer. There probably were some certain expectations that he'd come out with like a big sound again and do something really big and massive. He put this out instead. And I'm not saying this is a bad album. In fact, this is a great album. But I don't think this met the expectations of a lot of more mainstream music fans. I remember when I heard this, I was skeptical. I thought maybe Howie B is going in a different direction. He has worked with U2 after all. Maybe he's going to go after some bigger, more, I don't know, some wider recognized sound that more people can identify with, which in my opinion means boring. He didn't do that. He did this. This album's called Snatch, and I'm pretty sure this came out in 1999. Great album. Very, it sounds like Howie B. In fact, I think Music for Babies was a brilliant album. I've talked about it already. Very emotional, very ambient, also a lot of hip hop influences and even techno influences, but it was very quirky and weird. Turn the Dark Off was more mainstream, I guess. It was still quirky and weird. It was a great album. Maybe his most accessible album. Again, so I felt like maybe with his next album he would go more in that direction, but he didn't. He kind of went, I don't want to say he went back, because I don't want to sound like his sound took a regression. But he kind of went back to his roots here. This album is a little more reminiscent of Music for Babies, but it had an updated, forward-thinking sound like Music for Babies did. But I think it's kind of in that realm more than Turn the Dark Off. Way more quirky. Tracks are harder to crack open. It's a more challenging listen, which I love. I prefer that. I think a lot of Howie, I don't know if they were Howie B fans, but I remember this record maybe not getting recognized as much as it should have, but I think it should. And it's aged very well. I just recorded this, and man, it sounds better than ever. This is a fantastic record, Snatch. Highly recommend this. And if you like Howie B, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But this is a fantastic album. Oh, it's so good. Let me show you the labels. I mean, it's just Howie B kind of getting on with business, you know, just doing what he does. Making electronic music with a difference. Always kind of having that hip hop and ambient feel to it, but like sprinkling in electro and techno here and there, but like it always has this really soulful synth work, interesting vocal samples. Nothing sounds like this shit. Nothing. Howie B just is on his own planet. Music, it has a sense of humor too, but it's really emotionally driven, and I'm just showing you all the labels here. I do feel like this album wasn't, I don't know, was it well reviewed? I don't remember. I just don't remember it getting as much attention as its two previous albums. And I don't know the reason for that. Again, it's a more challenging listen than both Music for Babies and Turn the Dark Off, I think. Not that his releases always had a challenge to them. They weren't easy nuts to crack. But this one maybe more so up to that point. The album that he did after this was even a tougher nut to crack, and I think it's all the more brilliant for it. I'll get to that record in a minute. Snatch. Love this record. I loved revisiting this the other day. Just recorded this. And sounds better than ever. Hasn't aged a day. Just like the music of all great artists. It doesn't age. Just kind of gets better. In fact, to be totally honest, when I first heard this album, I don't know that it hit me right away. I liked it because it was Howie B. Like, he has a signature sound. No matter how different he's being, I can always kind of tell it's him. He's got a way of, that's the sign of a true music star. You can kind of tell it's them. No matter what they're doing, they have one signature sound. I think it's in his synth work. He has this real talent for these subtle melodies, this playful synthesizer work almost. Playful, but then sinister at the same time. Just really great at what he does, man. Howie B. Awesome album. These are a couple of 12 inches he put out at the time. Fantastic 12-inch, Jugs for Sale. This kind of has a similar sound to what you hear on Snatch. I want to say this came out, did this come out the same year? I don't see a year on here. Well, I think this came out like a year, within the year or two of Snatch. It has that same sound and feel to it, Jugs for Sale. 2-track 12-inch. Awesome stuff. Either one of these songs would have fit on Snatch, I think. They could have if he wanted. Has a very similar sound. This is one of my favorite Howie B records. This is Howie Be Thy Name, again on Pussyfoot. You see that, the mark of quality right there. Howie Be Thy Name, a 4-tracker. I think this came out prior to Snatch, I want to say. Did this come out before? I don't see any years on here. Well, anyway. I think this came out in 1998, where Snatch came out in 1999. I guess it doesn't matter. But very in line with what he would do on Snatch. I think any one of these cuts could have fit on the album. It would have made sense. But just a great addition to Snatch. I think if you love Snatch, and who doesn't? Anyway, that was a horrible. I had to go there. I have a dirty, horrible, filthy mind. But if you love Snatch, you should get Howie Be Thy Name. Because it's a very similar sound. They coexist very well. Just like our relationship with all Snatch. Am I right? Or am I right? Here's the album. I want to say he put this out in 2001. Yep, I see the year right here. This was the album he did after Snatch. This is Folk. And this is definitely a record that took a while, even for me, who loves Howie B. This took a while to grow on even me. It took a while. But 20 odd years later, 24 years, it's been out for 24 years now. I love this record. This is such a good record. Such a good album. It was beyond me at the time it came out. Howie B was thinking well beyond my capability. I just was in a different place in 2001. I was listening to different stuff. My mind was somewhere else. So this didn't hit me right away. But over the last 20 odd years of listening to this, it's really hit me. I recorded this the other day and I was like, man, what a good album. And probably unlike any other album that he's done. I mean, it's like other albums he's made, but it's probably the most different than any other record he's made. Lots of vocals, Not that he didn't have vocals on other albums, but almost all songs on here have some kind of vocal on them. It's pretty tried and true to its title. It is kind of folky. It's electronic, but it's still folky. Folky. It's almost kind of tribal in some tracks too. Very meditative music. Lots of vocals, more so than on any other Howie B album, I think. In fact, when I think of his other albums, I would argue that, yeah, this has more vocal work from other artists than anything I've heard. Even Howie B is on here doing vocals. A very different sounding album. One of those records that you've never heard anything quite like it. And we celebrate those albums, right? Like I mentioned before, this album took a long time for it to really sink in. It was beyond me at the time it came out. I remember being slightly disappointed when it came out, actually, because it just wasn't what I was expecting. But then over time, I feel like this happens in movies a lot too. When you see something you weren't expecting, maybe your initial reaction to it is to be like, hey, what is this? But then after time, you're like, holy shit, this is great. Definitely my relationship with this album. That's what my relationship is. Love this record. It's so good. And a really nice package too. You get a nice gatefold sleeve. You get an insert with some folky looking dudes on there. Some more folk on the back. And the title, when you see folk and you see these people, he's playing on the word folk, I think. Like it could mean folk as in folks, or it could mean folk as in folk music, or it could be both. I think there's an argument for both. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day because it's a great album. He could have really called it anything, but I think folk is a good. Folk has multiple meanings. It's an adjective, it's a noun. I love it. I love it when people play on words like that. And then here's the inner sleeve. So yeah, you get the gatefold, you get the inner sleeve, you get the insert, get some lyrics. Nice little package here. And then I'll just flash the labels really quick. Nothing too exciting on the labels here, but great album. I'm going to hesitate ranking Howie B albums because I don't know. I don't think that's fair. I think all of his albums are great. Ranking them would be silly because they are all different. But they're all Howie B. I think if you want to have the best Howie B album, you need to have them all. Because Howie B is a talent that we should be celebrating by listening and purchasing all of his music because he's that fucking talented. I think. Love this guy. And then here's some, I'm not going to flash these for very long. There's really nothing to see here. I forgot I had these. He put out a series, there's 3 promos he put out surrounding folk. They all have different remixes. This has a Roger S remix. And then these 2 others they both have this Uncle remix on them, which is fantastic. I was never a huge Uncle fan. Like I loved some Uncle and then I couldn't stand other Uncle. Uncle is James Lavelle. He owned Mowax Records, who put out a lot of Howie B records. This one also has Adobe and Filibuster's remix, and then this one has an Afterlife remix. But both of these have the Uncle remix. And all 3 of them should have had the Uncle remix because the Uncle remix is fantastic. Arguably the best track to come from the album. I think the Uncle mix arguably is better than any song on the album. James Lavelle remixed Hey Jack, which is a great song, arguably the best song on the album. And then James Lavelle stepped in and made it even better. Awesome stuff. James Lavelle and Uncle, they stepped in and gave it the Mowax treatment. These were in the stack too. I just thought I'd flash these because they were there. This is Howie B. He recorded a couple records as Skelf, one with kind of a green bluish cover, and then this one with like the red cover. Um, I think that is Howie B, right? Looks like him. Just kind of a strange illustration of his face looking serious and angry. Um, anyway, a couple of Skelf records. He put these out on Mowax. These were a little more experimental, I guess, for him. More in the electro techno vein, maybe. Probably more electro. I don't know if it's all that techno. It sounds like Howie B. It's just him kind of making tracks for the dance floor. More hard hitting, beat driven tracks with bass and um, yeah, excellent stuff. I can't remember this green one. What's the name of this? I think one of them's called Fish. Is it Fish? Kind of bare bones on the details here, but I don't know. I think one of these is called Fish. Might be this one. This is the one that I used to play. There's a cut on here. Oh my God, what was it called? I think it's called I Can't Comprehend. There's a cut on here called I Can't Comprehend that has like a vocal. It's a guy doing like one line over and over again, but it's an intense track. Definitely a track made for the dance floor. I can remember when I DJ'd, I would put this track on and people would all flock to the dance floor. It's just one of those cuts that attracts an audience. If you're ever DJing and you want to bring your audience back, you want to compel your audience and get them dancing, pick this record up. Skelf. I think this is called I Can't Comprehend. Yeah, I don't know. It's the one with the red face. If you're going to get one or the other, I mean, they're both great, but this one's something special, I think. One of Howie B's best records, really. And that is my Howie B video. Cool. I wanted to keep this under half an hour because my videos have been super long lately. Like, up around an hour every time. But I really wanted to focus on folk and Snatch. Particularly this one. I don't know. I've listened to this off and on over the years, and it's been a long, slow grind on me to fully appreciate this. But when I was recording this the other day, I was like, oh my God, yeah, this album was just beyond me at the time it was released. I just wasn't ready for it. And this one, so good. I mean, anything Howie B did in the 90s, pick it up. Brilliant. Everything he did in the 2000s is brilliant as well. I think his stuff is easier to find, maybe just on vinyl in the 90s. And he's only done one other album that I know of in the last decade or so, and I don't have that with me. I have it somewhere in my archives. It's the one with the white cover and his face is kind of outlined in black. I can't remember the name of the album. Excellent stuff, though. This dude doesn't put out bad music. He just doesn't do it. He doesn't know how to do it. I think that's the mark of quality you get with the Pussyfoot. Snatch and folk. Great stuff. I will talk to you next time. Later.